We are on the second floor of the Sandy Spring Slave Museum here in Sandy Spring, Maryland, and we are in the Civil Rights and Slavery Room here at the museum. What we're looking at is the wall in which it shows many artifacts and photographs. Um, it's the aim of most of these objects and artifacts was that of ridiculing back Black folks. So you will see black face play scripts that show white minstrels and dancers. You will see Bull Durham, the tobacco advertisements, that is definitely exaggerating Black people, in their features, and you also see trade cards and, other items on this wall. As we move around in the room, you will then see how we have all these different implements that was used to, um, basically torture people and try to during slavery. So we have all types of shackles. We have a neck shackle, which is in the frame, with a picture of two men that shows you what it looked around the person's neck. We also have with on the wall, as you see, hand shackles, leg shackles. We also have on the floor another shackle that would go around your leg. Um, and it had a ball, like a ball and chain, and it would be attached to the person. These are other things just to, continue to try to control people. Also, a whip that's hanging on the wall. And we also have a branding iron, which is kind of standing in the middle of by the wall there. So these are many different things that were used, and this documents, how horrible slavery was and how people really treated others to gain control over them of their bodies. We keep moving into where we see two figures that are standing there that have robes on. These are KKK authentic robes. One is more grayish, or it probably was darker when it first was made, and then the other one's white, which is what most people might think of when they think of KKK. These have come from Ellicott City, Maryland, and these are authentic artifacts. And of course, this is during a time when, right after slavery, these different uh, terrorist groups really begin to flourish. And continuing around the room, we see on this wall, there's many different documents. Um, Many of them are connected with the slavery and inventories. So some of them actually show the names of enslaved people and who owned them, but it lists their age and the amount of money they were worth. There are other documents here on the wall that also represent, people giving people to someone in their will. Um, and we have quite a few documents that highlight the horrors of what people really did when they owned someone else as property. In this corner here, we have a few things. Within the little case is it shows a group of people in a coffle, and that's what basically when folks were captured. They were then, chained together, and they had one person who was in charge of that group, and they would walk, hundreds of miles to wherever they were captured to the shores and to board the ships to come to over here in the New World. Or um, we also have a lawn jockey. That is the little fella there standing. These This lawn jockey. You would see many of these in many people's yards. They still exist in many places in America. Um, but the lawn jockey, there are 2 stories that are connected to him. And, one has to do with, um, the first president, George Washington, having a young enslaved boy who was traveling with him during, while he was fighting, and one of the battles. and it was cold and it was freezing that day. And eventually, what happens? The young boy wants to go with George Washington across the river, but he told him to stay and watch the horses. When they returned, the little they called him Jocko, um, was frozen to death while holding the horses. So President Washington was pretty moved by this and commissioned to have some statue made in his likeness. That's one story. Another story is that these little objects were built to help people who were freedom seekers along the Underground Railroad, and that there was usually a lantern connected to his hand, and if maybe a candle was lit in the lantern, that was a signal if the freedom seekers knew to look for something, that this particular place was a safe place to be or a safe house. So two different things, but it's very interesting nonetheless. And if we keep moving around the room, we have here. These are a few artifacts, especially those muskets that's in the case that you see there, that were used when the French were in Africa, and they were taking different Africans from the continent. So those were muskets that were used by people who were taking people by force. And the two other objects are African objects that show an enslaved woman. And we also have a door at the bottom there that is actually connected to more present time. It was at a VFW in I think West Virginia, where people were using this VW bug to shoot up and paint the words KKK on that particular door in this particular area.